I'm just gonna
Oh, yeah.
wait for the students that missed out. What sort of let's see, in terms of blockchain or overall?
Either. I mean, just kind of curious.
Let's see. So on the blockchain side, we had Gil come in last week,
Oh yeah.
and then but it was less about the D side, just more blockchain overall. Do you think it will go over about DAOs and everything today, or
Yeah, yeah, I'll cover a little bit. I'll cover one of the DAOs that's working on his stuff.
okay, that's great, yeah, because I kind of want to segue into that from the blockchain side, and
Yeah.
then we had a couple talks about from companies that people who are formerly at Stanford started with like the AI diagnostics. Um,
Oh, interesting.
uh, yeah, I feel like you have like AI here and you have blockchain here, and there's an intersection that's happening, but it's not fully. The AI side hasn't really integrated blockchain yet. Blockchain, I think, um, you have a lot of blockchain companies now that are uh, coming out with like their AI focused either coins or with the EVM and the new upgrade on Ethereum, um,
Yes,
the Cancun update, I think it will make things more like feasible and like practical in terms of running things on chain.
very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Um, yeah, I mean, since I left Stanford like 2 years ago and came to New York, and it's been great out here. But I do miss a little bit of the culture out there. It is nice. Stanford is a great place. The people are doing like really interesting things. Um, so I'm glad you guys are there. Has the campus changed much over the past few years?
So much construction all the time. Right every corner is another construction project.
Yeah.
I feel like that's always kind of the case.
They built a new data science center. They
Oh,
like
cool.
yeah, they like completely demolished. I forgot what building was there before, but they completely took it down and they rebuilt.
Wow.
It's right across diagonal from like the Stanford Quad.
Oh, interesting.
Like
Very
next.
cool.
Were you here during COVID or after COVID?
I left during COVID, like
Okay,
at the
okay.
end of COVID. That's when I kind of graduated.
So were you here for like when like all the squirrels, the squirrel ecosystem got like ravaged because
Oh,
the
I didn't even know about that. That's interesting.
apparently because they all the undergrads left and then or the campus was empty.
There's no
The,
food.
there's no food scraps and then there's just dead squirrels everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of like a wild thing that I don't know, maybe it's good that everyone here. Yeah.
It's one way to be populist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last night I was walking home from class and then I like face to face with a very big raccoon. And a very chubby raccoon, so it's definitely getting food scraps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not scared of me at all. I'm not scared.
I turn around, like roll over. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's great that there's wildlife here. I feel kind of bad for them because of all the development that's like their living space is only gonna get smaller. I was at the driving range and then saw like some coyotes, one coyote actually walk by.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool. On Pageville too, there's every once in a while we see a coyote that just lost or got kicked out of its territory and now it's yeah coming down from the foothills. Yeah.
Coyotes, deer, and bobcats.
Very good. And then there's a not there's this guy who I came back when I visited for like alumni weekend who's like the tree expert at Stanford,
Oh
and
wow.
he is so interesting. I think if you go to trees.stanford.edu,
Yeah.
they have all this like
Oh
super
wow.
detailed stuff about trees. And the guy whose name is, I think it must be on here somewhere. Maybe it was Cyrus Patel.
Cyrus Patel. Yeah, I saw it.
Is just like
Wow.
a very good expert on trees and like tree history and biology and all that sort of stuff at Stanford. And I went on this like walking tour and it was incredible.
So is this under the biology department or
I
like
think he works for Stanford,
here we
like
go, liquid blood. Huh.
proper, like the Stanford school, the
Okay.
Stanford administration, as like maybe in part of the like buildings department or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, the ground
Um,
services. Yeah.
yeah, but he was super knowledgeable on like all the different trees, and like there's different authors that had written books around like certain trees in the quad, like trees quad book. Someone had written a book, I forgot what it was called, where like the trees in the courtyard had played like an important part in the plot, and he was talking about that. And it was just like a very interesting tour talking about ecology.
Any any intersection with blockchain and the trees at Stanford or
Sadly not. Maybe each tree could get like an NFT or something.
yeah, yeah, mint a tree and plant a tree and mint
Mint
an
a
NFT.
tree or some. There is a very popular thing called regen blockchain. I think it's called regenerative technologies, where they try and use blockchain for like carbon capture.
Oh yeah.
um that is becoming like a big deal. So like they're trying to like, I think, keep track of carbon credits online, which is kind of cool. um it's still a little bit early, but it seems popular. Yeah, there's one called KlimaDAO that's doing that. Public good for our planet, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting. Um, cool. Well, yes, we're excited to hear about
Sweet. All right, let me share my screen. Share screen. Boom. Can you see it?
yes.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, my name is Michael. I did undergrad, I did PhD at Stanford. I studied, and if you guys have questions along the way, just ask. It seems like a relatively small group, and I know this stuff pretty well, so you can feel free to interrupt. I did undergrad and PhD at Stanford. I studied computer science. I My PhD was on like natural language processing and like how to convert code into and how to convert natural language into code. So basically, like imagine, it's funny talking about this now, because it's like you can do it, but with ChatGPT. But this was before this was possible. But the idea was like you would tell the computer what you want in like natural language and say like, oh, build me like a skill or a program, and then it would do that and convert it into sort of like a JavaScript style programming language. And then it would also build the user interface for it. And it would sort of, the idea was like, how do you not automate, but how do you augment programming using like AI? Now, of course, it's kind of funny seeing it now because like all these chat GPT and all these LLMs can do it for you. And it works very, very, very well. Um, so that's exciting. And one of the funny things is like shortly before COVID, there's this like library in the computer science department where they have like all the prior PhD students' theses. And I was looking through it, and like the stuff that you could get a PhD in at Stanford for in like the 1970s in computer science was almost like crazy. Like it was like all these like topics on like sorting algorithms, and like while interesting and stuff, like today we don't think of those as like deeply research-based computer science topics, right?
Yeah.
And when I was looking at it, I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. And then like the thought occurred to me, like, oh wait, at some point soon, this is going to be me. Like the thesis that I worked on will also be obsolete and almost commonplace. And then COVID hit, and ChatGPT came out, and I was like, oh, and then that's why it's one of the first things I tried with ChatGPT was like even GPT-3, not even ChatGPT, like the earlier versions of it where it didn't even like have the chat interface. And one of the first things I tried out was like, oh, let's see if I can like get it to program, and it worked pretty well. And that was very surprising. And I was like, oh, okay, full circle. Like that thing that I thought was gonna happen happened. So uh then I moved to New York, and I started a crypto company. And it was like it's a database company. And but then I started getting very much into DeSci. So I started DeSci NYC, which stands for Decentralized Science New York. And we have like monthly meetups. I'll talk about those at the end. Um, but first, I just wanted to like give you a primer on like what is DeSci. So DeSci kind of came out of like DeFi. So DeFi is decentralized finance. And you've probably, I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but like decentralized finance is like the DeFi summer that occurred a couple of years ago, where people are having all these different very cool lending protocols and staking protocols. So you can swap tokens on Uniswap. You can trade tokens. You can stake and get yield on them. And people were kind of taking all these different tokens that existed and coming up with all these sort of games and casino style things that you could sort of speculate on. People love speculating on things. Like there's no ending on how much people love speculating on what's going to happen. And so that kind of was like the DeFi was that's what DeFi is like using the blockchain. Like the blockchain is this distributed ledger that can maintain state for many different types of for people, and no one has to trust it, right? So like you're not no one, but like you when you put in like I own this bit, basically, it was like that's what a blockchain does. It's like just a high like Bitcoin is like you claim ownership of this like bit of data, and that like in that case could be a Bitcoin or a Satoshi, like the smallest amount. And you get access to that bit, and you can prove you own that bit with using cryptography. So using your private key, you can say like I verify that I'm the owner of this small bit of data, and no one can ever take that away from you, which is really cool. So anyone who tries to take it away from you would have to break the cryptographic scheme in order to claim that bit from you. And so once you have that like bit that you own, the first thing that people tried to do with it was say like, okay, we're going to use this as a type of money. So I'm going to give you a piece of Bitcoin and in exchange for a cup of coffee or whatever. And that's really interesting. But what is cooler is like, instead of just like swapping tokens for tokens, right? Which can kind of get boring. And the real problem is there's no like information coming in from the outside. So people are just kind of like moving things around, but there's like not if you just like give you me a pile of sand in exchange for a pile of dirt, like there's no like actual like value per se being created, right? And so DeSci is like the inside of DeSci is like, okay, what if instead of just like having swapping tokens, we attach like data and like specifically scientific data to each of these bits of information, and then we can track like where the data came from. Like I mean, Stanford is a great example of this. Like there's all these issues with the president, and he was maybe they didn't track the data well enough, or they were doing all these other issues, and some of these things can't really be prevented to some extent. But I think that you can like rebuild the future of how science will become using these sort of new types of technologies so that researchers 5, 10 years from now um, will default to this way of doing science instead of defaulting to the old way of doing science. And so that's kind of like what DeSci is doing is it's like it's a pair it's DeSci is very broad, obviously. Like it's like trying to so it encapsulates many different things, but you know, it's pushing towards transparency. It's like open source software, but for science, sort of. And there have been other initiatives in this same area, like open data initiatives, right? Where like you're encouraged to post your data online, right? And open source it. But I think where some of those things failed is in the incentive layer on them. So like you post your data online and you spend all this time and effort working on it, right? And then you're like, what's in it for me to post that data? Someone's now just going to scoop me. And the interesting thing about like DeSci and blockchain is in one of the things that they sort of promise is that you don't have to just like give your data or anything away for free, but it's more about like changing the incentives where you can give your data away, but someone else has to pay for it in order to get access to it. Or someone else has to credit you, like using like a chain of trust or something in order to get access to it. So it becomes more like a transactional thing as opposed to like a goodwill thing. And I think this is like really important because then you have like an economy and you can have like people specializing in types of labor. And I'll give you an example of like why this is so important is like if you're an Uber driver and you just ask someone for a ride, they're going to say no. But because there's this like system in place and this like marketplace that Uber has created, now when you give someone money, they'll give you the ride. And I think there's like a very similar thing that will come out of DeSci is like you give someone money and then they give you the data or they promise you the credit or they promise you, you know, a fraction of the IP that's created from the data. And so you have like a marketplace and you'll have ratings and reviews, and people will be able to say, okay, cool, like this data set is actually really good, and I'll pay you a little bit more money in order to improve it. Or I will rate this badly and this data set sucks. And so you're sort of incentivizing like good science as opposed to just like goodwill. And you know, the problem with goodwill is that like um it encourages like the wrong types of behavior. So like what happened at Stanford is like one of the professor was like, "Yo, you know, if you publish really good work, I'm going to promise you something in the future, which is either a postdoc or a professorship, and you just have to like do what I say and trust that it'll work out." And no one was like keeping people accountable to the actual types of data. And like, so what happened is you get this outgrowth, this sort of like this behavior that you sort of almost expect looking retrospectively at it, like because the incentives were misaligned to just publish good data as opposed to like, or to not publish, to just publish data that looks good as opposed to data that is good. And so you get these kind of weird outgrowths. And when you connect the incentives a little bit more closely to the actual data, to the actual science that's being done, to more concrete incentives, I think we're going to be getting a better outcome. So you know, DeSci is about you know, changing the incentives and how more of like a shift towards open, accessible science. Um, the other thing about DeSci is that I have this hypothesis that uh, right now there's more scientists out there that exist than are currently scientists. And what I mean by that is right now at Stanford, you know, everyone is a scientist or, you know, some fraction of people are a scientist. But say um, you're sort of at home and you're not part of a lab, you're not part of a PI, you're a PI is not part of it, you're not part of a lab, you're not part of a university. It's really hard to contribute to science, right? And uh, because you need to apply, you need to do all this random stuff. And what DeSci is because all these like data sets are created in sort of like a trustless way. It means you don't need to like anyone can just like contribute to a data set or to a DAO. And you don't need to be part of the community. You just need to have like the data or the ability to do the work. And so one of the hypotheses is that there are many, many, many more scientists that exist that aren't practicing than maybe what there could be. Because like there's also the issue of like you have to basically be born in a country that like promotes science, and the ability to get to university is like not impossible, but also just like not easy either. And so like if you're just someone in another part of the country and you look at all these like websites like that host really skilled talented labor like Upwork and Fiverr, and like 100%, and like 100% there's skilled people out there in programming, in the realm of programming, in the realm of design, in the realm of business, that just don't have the opportunity to contribute in like getting a job at like a really good place. And I think like there's an opportunity to like empower those types of people to contribute to science by just giving them like clear instructions around like what's sort of needed. And so like that's another benefit of DeSci, is like sort of opening that up outside of the ivory tower. And now all these problems could be solved 100% if the bureaucracies like allowed it to, if bureaucracies changed. But the problem is like a lot of the interesting technological, a lot of the most interesting technology is being created to sort of overcome bureaucracies. So I'll give a few examples, like Bitcoin. So why has Bitcoin existed? Like, because they wanted to create this, like, whether or not you agree or not agree, like the reason someone created it is because they thought governments were printing too much money. Now, you could say like, okay, we're gonna like elect people into government to prevent, and then like get a president elected who's going to put in place uh someone who's going to put in a monetary policy that I personally agree with. But that is so hard that it's easier to create a separate system that sort of works outside of it to create a monetary system that you wanted to create. Or another example would be like Elon Musk's tunnel thing. Like you could sort of get like a sensible traffic policy to work so that like cars could go more quickly, but that's not going to happen, and it's easier sort of to tunnel underneath. And so like I think similarly, like all the things that I will describe in this talk about DeSci could 100% be implemented at a university or at a research lab or anywhere else. But it's just like so tricky to get like change to how, or like funding is another one that's sort of another issue for some people. It's so hard to change how funding is done at the federal or the state or at the university level, that it's almost easier to create like a separate system that goes outside of it, that sort of is more attuned to like what your personal values are. Okay, so some of the problems that I think many people tend to agree with in the current system is, I don't like the funding aspect too much because like, but I will talk about it just briefly. Is um, like if you're not getting funded, it's probably not because it's probably because like the science sucks. It's not because like there's some sort of like problem in funding, but sometimes there is a problem in funding. Like one of the issues is like it's hard to get new ideas out because like the people that are elected to funding agencies basically fund things that they're familiar with or that people that they know. So what's interesting is you see like the median age of when these agencies are created, and then the median age of the people that they accept into their things are like directly in correlation with each other, because as they get older, they know the same people, they accept the same people are talking about the same ideas that they like. So there's just some issues there. But it's not that's not the main issue. And then oftentimes people want to, there are people out there that want to contribute to science, right? And there are some websites like experiment.com that allow people to sort of crowdfund to research, but sometimes it's hard to like close the loop on that because like you want to crowdfund research, but then you might want to like be a bit more involved in the process, right? Like so you could say like, oh, I really want to uh doing this reagent or take is wrong. I want to like use this other thing, or like we want to take the research in this direction. So it's sort of like crowdsourcing uh, uh, crowdsourcing uh, science. And you might want to be involved in like how it's shaped. And some of those other websites, it just allows you to sort of go fund me and then like YOLO and then like you say bye. But people want to be a bit more involved. Another issue we're seeing with science, this is just some peer review is just terrible. Like it doesn't incentivize uh it incentivizes the wrong thing. It doesn't pay. The incentives are misaligned. So like when you submit a paper, you have to pay. When you get access to the paper, you have to pay. The authors aren't paid. There's no incentive. It's slow. So you might submit a paper and 9 months later, or a year later, it's sort of finally accepted. And then you like give a talk on it at a conference where there's like 20 people. Maybe it's just easier to tweet it. I think that one of the bigger things that I'm upset about in science is like the pretty big lack of like reproducibility in science. So like the data sets are sort of hard. They're not in a standard. Oftentimes, like the reproducibility is really not linked in any important way to the peer review process. Like I think a much better metric sometimes is just like looking at a GitHub thing and seeing how many stars it has or how many times it's been forked, because like that's a great metric of like, is this useful to someone else? Now it's obviously like easier to do that in the realm of software, but like maybe there is like ways of like thinking through maybe publishing smaller things that are like easier to like chunked up into smaller things. And then lastly is again around like incentives. So like the complexities in IP. So like say you have a really cool idea at Stanford or any university, and you're like, oh, I want to like start a startup based on this. You might have to go to the like licensing department and say like negotiate a deal, and it's just like hard. Like it should be just sort of as easy as like buying a candy bar. Like it should just be like simple. And so like the IP rights should just be like set, easy to go. Um, so like like DeSci promises to like fix these things with like instead of relying on one funding agency or government funding agencies, you can have anyone crowdsource it just by like depositing Bitcoin into some wallet and then giving them a stake in that project. Then there's also the Web3. It helps to democratize things, and it also helps to engage the public more. So like this gets into the point I was making earlier around like science happens like in a lab right now, but maybe it's helpful to engage a broader set of people in science using crypto and incentives that scale outside of just like an easy lab like a lab. So um so like you have transparency in science when you do funding when you do funding in this way, or when you use any sort of blockchain. So any sort of uh data that's put on chain or funding that happens occurs in the open. um the other one is like the DAOs that you mentioned. So DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, and it's a way of collecting people that are similarly interested in a activity. So there's DAOs for everything on the internet. So you could have a DAO for like what are some of the bigger DAOs? Like social communities have used DAOs, like art collections use DAOs, scientific researchers use DAOs. And a DAO is just kind of like a company in the real world, but each person, instead of being like a person as the primary object per se, like each person is like a wallet address. And then each wallet address has different permissions. So some wallet addresses might have access to the treasury of a DAO, giving them access to all the DAO's assets. Some DAOs might have access to some members of a DAO might have access to multi-sigs. And multi-sigs are like, give them access to distribute money or access to certain parts of the data sets that are collected or access to certain rooms. So it's like a company, but like, and say like someone violates a rule, like the owner of the DAO could be like swapped out for like another wallet address. And it's a way of like, it's kind of like a Web3 native way of starting a company or a project, where there's a bit more, there's like a custom, there's a verifiable person at the end of it. And then one of the other things about funding, I'll briefly touch on is like right now the things that are funded aren't necessarily like long tail. So like there's a lot of really interesting research that maybe is like too crazy to like get like university funding, like focused ultrasound or like for sleep is one thing that people have been looking into, like changing how people dream using focused ultrasound. And like it seems almost like kind of quacky, but maybe there's something there. Like you're not super sure. Another one is like longevity, right? Like this is something that has like tremendous interest, that lots and lots of people would be interested in funding, but maybe like doesn't fit within the realm of like a university so well. So that's like another type of thing. Let's see. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. And then we'll go here. Okay, so yeah, once you have all the sorts of types of data on chain, you can begin to change how things like peer review are done. So you can, instead of just like using like a traditional system, you can like just like automatically verify uh, data that's on chain and make sure that it like sticks to and make sure that it's like any claims that they're doing in the paper are uh are accurate. And you don't need a person to like look anything over. Like you could just have like an AI bot automatically do that. And you can also incentivize people to do peer review in new ways. So maybe someone who does peer review gets, so imagine you have a paper, right? And when you create the paper, you mint like 1 million tokens. And you give like most of the tokens to the person who did the research. So you maybe the PI gets a certain percentage of the tokens, and the person who like was the lead author gets a certain amount of tokens, and even the person who like washes the test tubes might get a fraction of the tokens. But then you could also give like the peer reviewers a token as well, for doing the work of peer reviewing. Or you could also allow peer reviewers to speculate on their publication. So maybe when someone peer reviews it, might not even need a peer reviewer. Well, you could just publish the paper online, and you could say like, okay, do you think this is a good paper? Buy some of the tokens. Do you think this is a bad paper? Short some of the tokens. And if the paper has value over the course of 6 months, a year, 10 years, 100 years, the price of the token will go up. So now me as a researcher, I'll just look at the papers that are expensive by market cap. And I'll say like, oh, these are the good papers. And what's cool is like, you've created a market around that where the price of a paper, like someone comes out with a better paper or someone comes out with a paper that is more up to date. Like for example, take the example of the Alzheimer's paper that was at Stanford. Once that data comes out that data set was bad, the price of that paper will crash because people will like realize that like, oh, this is like NVIDIA of the day. Like they're no longer making the best chips, or this data set is no longer accurate. So there's ways like once you tokenize everything about a research paper, you can have all these really interesting like cryptonomic incentives to modify how peer review is done with sort of market-based techniques as opposed to just like me sending it into Nature, waiting. Like the problem with those types of techniques is like the person has literally no incentive to do a good job. Like they just like they're just like say like, okay, I did the thing and I'm done. And like I don't know who that also you don't know who it is, which is also just like bizarre. And they maybe they don't even they know who you are, but maybe they have a grudge against you. But with when you do things out in the open and when you incentivize people given the right techniques, you get these outcomes that I think will lead to a better, a more accurate science, basically, which is very exciting. Did that make sense about the like shorting and longing the paper?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I was wondering, so where like the liquidity for the shorting or the
Yeah.
value tokens would be coming from? Is this just how you initially said people would be putting in one Bitcoin or
Yeah. So I don't have the answers to everything, but I could come up with some ideas around. I mean, this is an idea I've just sort of been kicking in the back of my head, but like maybe the person who publishes the paper provides liquidity, right? Or maybe the university provides liquidity, or maybe you know, there's some like giant Uniswap where I have papers that I've published that give me a bunch of tokens that are basically useless, and then I can like stake those on this other paper that is like also useless or something like that. Maybe there's some sort of like universal like Uniswap that just does like any type of token to any type of token, and you can sort of hedge from one paper to another paper. Yeah, so I mean, or maybe there's like a liquidity provider. Maybe it's the government or something, or some other sort of benefactor of science. I think probably the most likely one would be like the person who published the paper. They should stand by their work to some extent and start a small liquidity pool.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. If you guys have questions, just raise your hand or something. Okay, so one of the other things that's really interesting is like intellectual property, right? So like this isn't so big of a deal in universities today because most of the stuff is sort of bad anyway. So like there's not like a huge incentive. It's not like reproducible and like people don't spin out. Like if you looked at probably like the number of research projects that led to just in general, and then of those that lead to IP creation, like through the IP office at Stanford, and then those that are like further licensed, I'd imagine that that number is very, very, very small. I don't know how small, but I would imagine it's like very small. And of course, like when it works, right? Like Google, right? Like when Google's licensed their PageRank algorithm, like wow, that worked. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see like and also this is like Stanford too. Like how does that sort of how does that look over time, right? Like or over institutions. Like maybe there's like a smaller school. Are they publishing in the same amount of like IP that's like actually useful? But I think what would like some of these things like just require a few things to change at once. Like science does create IP, right? Like science does create very, very valuable IP. And I think if there was like a clearer way to track um or for people to like get access to that IP once they're finished or to incentivize people to create reproducible work, like that would be great. So what's cool is like when you do all of your research on chain, like you know exactly who contributes what. So there's like provenance to each part of the data. So like who put in each this data set, who put in what percentage of which data set, who came up with the idea, who managed it, who did the analysis. And so you can like take all this stuff that's been created and just track it. And then just like the whole project becomes like an IP ball. And then you just like subdivide it up based on some predetermined contract that when the project is minted. And so like maybe at the outset, like you say like 20% is reserved for the PI, 20% is reserved for everyone that contributes data. 20% is reserved for everyone that does analysis, and 20% is reserved for the people that write it up. And then you just like look to see who did what parts of it. And there's some mechanism to prevent like gaming of the system. Maybe there's like a multi-sig that like requires 3 of 5 people to verify that this person did this task. And then like that project sells for some amount of value. And everyone that contributed is just like tracked easily who did what and who gets what. And I think this will lead to like more verifiable science when you can sort of track the IP created from it. So here's a couple of case studies. One is VitaDAO. So they are focusing on longevity, which is like you know, right? You guys follow Brian Johnson or like any of these types of things. It's like a Twitter guy, and he's like, okay, I think it's possible. He thinks it's possible to live forever using, you know, the right diet and exercise and tracking your sleep. And but he's only one guy, right? Like this probably isn't going to be solved by one person just like focusing really hard on it. It's probably going to require lots of people thinking about this. So what they did is they are doing an approach to DeSci where they're sort of funding funding projects. So like they acquire money through their token price increase, and they sell parts of it off. And then I think that's how they do it. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I would guess. And then they like a professor at some university comes along and says, look, I have an idea for tissue replacement to increase lifespan, or I have an idea for some sort of stimulation, neurostimulation to increase lifespan. I'm going to accept your grant money sort of in exchange for the IP that's created around it to be tokenized, and then I think for the people that invested in it to get sort of access to that. So while they're not tracking anything per se, they're not like doing science on chain. They're using it as like a funding mechanism. And they operate as a DAO, and they have like a Discord, and it's interesting. I think it's like an interesting. I think that they did a very good job of being one of the first ones, and coming up with like a funding model. I don't think they're doing science per se at VitaDAO, but I do think that they're doing an interesting job. Another one is like a bit more like I would classify as doing sort of science in more of a DeSci native way. Is genomes.io. And this sort of empowers individuals to like track their own genomic data. And like you can like upload your genome, like you do it through something like 23andMe. Like there are other providers that take it, and they send you like a USB or a digital file back, and then you give that to Genomes, and then Genomes secures that data and, you know, facilitates collective science on it. So if someone wants access to it, I believe they have to pay a certain amount of money, and then you get that money. But it's like it's more of like a native Web3 way of doing science, which I think this is probably like the future of how DeSci should be done. You know, you have to be careful with like genetic data, obviously, because like, you know, you kind of, once that's gone, that ship has sailed. But I think they're doing an interesting job. So some of the challenges with DeSci is that like there's only so much money out there. You can only fund so much projects. I think another challenge of DeSci is Stanford or these universities do a very good job of preventing like snake oil and like things that have no scientific merit. I think like DeSci is going to encourage people that are like, I have an idea for how light is going to cure, or chocolate is going to cure whatever. And I think that's going to be a problem. So, and another one is like when it starts impacting other people, right? So like you don't want some person who's like a salesperson saying, oh, I have figured out the way to cure X. and then other people trying it. But I think there is another balance to that where it's like the FDA also like probably is like on the other side where there's like no risk, and which is good for some people. But I think what we have to be careful in DeSci is just like informing people and making sure people are aware of like what they're doing, whether they be on the receiving or producing side of things, like informed consent basically on it. So yeah, ensuring there's like an IRB process that makes sense. And then yeah, just integrating well with traditional science and making sure everyone's happy. Um, I think like another thing that I'm really optimistic for is like increasing the number of scientists. So yeah, I think there are more scientists out there than exists in universities, and they should have a place to be able to contribute and work together with other science with and contribute. And I think yeah, DeSci will help to open up it will help to open up a rather closed system right now, and make things more accessible. And then the other big one is like, and I'll talk about this in a second, is like AI. So like all data and like the idea that like AI that people are going to be doing science in 20 years, I think is probably wrong. I think it'll probably be done by AI. And this DeSci will lay the groundwork for uh, allowing AI to read and understand data and to publish papers in AI readable formats that like the PDF probably is the PDF AI can read a PDF, but like I don't think it gives enough granularity to be able to like reproduce an experiment because it's optimized for human consumption. But like if you were publishing a paper that was meant to be read by something that has an infinite attention span, like why not just publish the entire protocol, all the code, everything, and then it'll just be like, and then it'll be like, okay, I can understand how that works. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about that part of the talk? Then I'll jump into some other parts.
Any questions?
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's great. This genomes.io is debating whether
Yeah.
I might own my DNA for it.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's very cool. I mean, do your own research before using it. Like I personally like I don't know. It's a little like you have to just be understand what they're doing and where they're storing your data.
Yeah, because it does say there's blockchain integration, but I can't imagine them still actually storing all the DNA on the blockchain right now.
Yeah. There are ways to store it on like IPFS or other
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I don't know exactly how they store it. I mean, ideally it would be like self-sovereign where like you have like a Raspberry Pi or something that is doing its thing and you can unplug it at certain times and you like whitelist like academic institutions and your friends to be able to have access to it, but you don't allow a random person to get access to it. I mean, you can do all that with cryptography per se. Like you could post your data online and encrypt it and then only give access to, but yeah, I guess people just like physically holding it sometimes, even though there's like literally no difference between physically holding it and encrypting it. But yeah, like, yeah, so that's yeah, it's a very interesting project.
Yeah, it's cute how they have these NFT cats that get minted when you submit your DNA.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a couple more questions, but I think I'll ask at the end.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah. So I'll just chat a little bit around this thing. I started DeSci NYC. We have like monthly speakers. It's really cool. Um, if you are interested, you can go to dsci.nyc. We have all our past videos there. So we've had some really cool speakers. Um, if you guys want to like, if you're ever in New York, you should come to one. We get like 100 people. It's really cool. If you want to like participate in the chat group, you can like scan this QR code here. There's like a very small form to fill out, and then they give you access to our Telegram group. That's just to maintain like a high quality of people. Obviously, you guys are all be fine, but it's just in general, like that's online. So uh everyone get that who wanted it? Okay. Here's some of the past speakers. We had this guy who was doing mushrooms, like foraging and mushrooms, and was like crowdsourcing like um mushroom identification, like that you could eat and stuff. It was really cool. He developed this like website. This was our first one. We had a guy who was doing a way to self-administer like at-home tests, like the blind self-blinded test at home using like QR codes. So you'd get a packet, you'd take the pill, and then you would scan a QR code, and it was a way of doing like double-blinded studies at home, which I thought was really cool. We had someone talk about bees. We had Martin Shkreli come, who was talked. You guys know Martin Shkreli? He's the pharma bro.
What's he up to these days? Wow.
He's working on like AI and medicine. He's done a bunch of projects, but he came to speak around this AI bot that he had created for for like diagnostics and stuff. He also was talking around about a proof of work system that you did useful proof of work. So like when you mine Bitcoin, like you're just like churning through power, right? You're just like hashing and trying to find a hash with a certain number of zeros at the front, which is just like wasteful. So he was working with someone to basically instead of hashing random problems to instead hash like drug binding sites and proteins and stuff like that. Which it was a cool talk, and that's online. DSci, yeah. If you want to view any of these, here's our website, just dsci.nyc. I think you might need to do HTTP :// not HTTPS. We just had an issue, and I'll fix it later today. But around that sort of thing. But it's cool. But yeah, you can watch his video. You can watch Martin's video there. We had the guy that invented the NFT come, and he talked about NFTs in science. He gave a really good talk, so I'd recommend that one. We had this guy, Patrick Joyce from Research Hub. He's working together with the Coinbase founder on like sort of like a peer review publishing platform. It's cool. I started this thing called Sci Combinator, which was like people trying to do DeSci projects. We did that once. We did a talk on longevity. This guy's really interesting, Matt Kaberlin. He's doing this thing called the Million Molecule Project, which is around using like a bunch of different ways of basically like automatically screening like automatically screening molecules and putting them into like this fish tank, and then like basically using like a flow cytometry automatically doing things to increase the. So he has like a million molecules. He then puts them into this like automated system of like zebrafish or something, and then he's trying to look for something that improves longevity better than rapamycin does. And it's an interesting project to think through, and he has a paper on that. We had this guy named professor from Einstein Medicine talk about longevity and tissue replacement. So basically, he's developing this technique. His thing is like, look, you're not going to live forever by just like taking care of your car. At some point, you have to replace the parts. And so he's looking into human body replacement, where and specifically in the brain, for replacing parts of your brain with new types of tissue, and hoping there's enough plasticity in the brain. I think he was looking into it more so for stroke patients, but still very interesting. We had this guy, Aaron D'Souza, from the Enhanced Games, and their thing is like, how do you, what if you had the Olympics, but you didn't have drug testing? So it encourages people to dope. And yeah, so the idea is like, what's the best humans can do, right? Like if you allow them to do anything, and maybe that will shed some light into longevity and into like other things. So our next event is here. If you guys are in New York in a week or two, you guys should swing by. You got that? I should have put a QR code. I didn't. Oh, you should follow us on Twitter or Instagram. We post stuff if you're interested. DeSci NYC on Twitter and Instagram. We post like interesting stuff that's happening in the DeSci community, and stuff that like our next events and uh memes from time to time, like whatever. So it's like we're trying to build out our presence online a little bit more because in-person events are good, but like we're not gonna reach 1 million people with their in-person events probably. Um, okay, so what did I do is I started this company called Shiba Science. Um, and it's about building an AI scientist basically. And so, but instead of it just being like a chat GPT, it's like it's trying to get people to contribute their data and then um, use that data to power an AI scientist. And the idea is like what I talked about before is like there's only so many ways we can like juice scientists today. Like coffee is only going to get us so far in powering like these really hard problems like environmental problems or longevity. So one of the things Brian Johnson talks about with longevity is like we're going to need some super intelligent thing to come up with the next wave of innovations in science. Like if we want to cure longevity, we basically need like ChatGPT 50 to come up with the cure. It's probably not going to end it, and like that could be just like around the corner, right? Like it's possible that like we get some sort of like super AGI in the next like 5 years, right? Like that is within the realm of that maybe is like you could disagree with it, but it also is like could be possible. And so like if we had like this all-powerful AGI, super AGI, maybe it's gonna start just like churning out like scientific breakthroughs like left and right that have just been outside of the realm of human cognition for a while. And but in order to do that, we're gonna need like lots of like scientific data. And like there is a lot of it online, but I think there can be more. So what we're doing is we're like tokenizing people's like scientific information, like the Oura Ring data, like genomic data, like all sorts of stuff, and like what people eat, and we're using that. So we're collecting that, and then one other thing is like in the future, like what ChatGPT did for coding is probably like what like this future scientist AI is going to do also. Like right now we think of like it used to be like, oh, only a certain person is a programmer, only a certain person is a copywriter, or only a certain person is an XYZ. But like it's very likely like that there's more people who want to do science than who are just like PhD students or professors. And in the same way that we're sort of seeing coding being democratized and copywriting being democratized and lots of other things being democratized, it's likely that like science will also be democratized. So everyone will be a scientist. So obviously like AI is going to be the catalyst that's going to do this. And so we have these like data pools, and when for different types of data, for like fMRI data, for DICOM data, for sleep data, um, for all that type of stuff, for EEG data. And when you contribute to a data pool, we issue you a token that is then used as a reward for the data. And then when your data is used for the AI, you get sort of a reward as well. So if your data is used for something useful down the road, you will become get ownership, part owner of it. So you kind of like get part of the IP that's created from your data using the AI. And so that's what I'm working on now. And yeah, that concludes it. A little DSci at the top, a little DSci NYC, a little something more specific. And that's sort of the whole of how DSci works.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Is this Shiba Science, is it up and running right now?
No,
or?
not yet. It's still like we're still working on it, but in the next few weeks, it's going to be a thing. We're gonna like release it.
So there'll be like a token or
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I mean the back end, the engineering on all that looks like quite difficult or
Yeah, I mean, we have a good team, and I think it just aligns the incentives with. I think there's a couple things that's important about it. One is like science is going to be done by AI soon. Like, I don't know if it's not done. Like, I graduated before AI became like a thing. But if you asked me what percentage of research papers are probably written by AI, I'd imagine it's probably high. Like I'd imagine most people just like throw in their data and uh, get it to write the paper, and then they sort of publish it. And I would be very and like maybe not. I don't know what the percentage is, but certainly there's a percentage of people that will be doing that. And um, I think it's just like thinking it also removes bias to a large extent. Like an AI has no skin in the game, whether or not it's like the data. They're like they don't care. The AI doesn't care, but I think a human will just like continually hack away at the data until it works. So like AI is going to like AI tends to take away the white collar jobs first, more so than like the blue collar. And like in many ways, like science is a very white collar job. You have to be very cognition heavy, and yeah, so I think anything that requires high amounts of cognition is like really well suited for AI. And it'll probably be more reproducible. It'll be able to share data. So we're trying to build something that like allows people to do science. And one of the missing parts of it is like scientific data. And it's not possible for us to create that data, so we have to like crowdsource it. And DeSci is like a really great way of crowdsourcing scientific data and rewarding people for their contributions, if they're useful contributions.
So the AI side, like you said, I agree with completely how a lot of papers, they're kind of aside from the gathering the data part, the writing and publishing part, there's not like I wouldn't say copy and paste, but there's like a pattern that people
Yeah.
follow. And a lot of people like maybe if English isn't their first language or they're comfortable publishing in English, it'll be outsourced, and the template is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So like a format and stuff like that. There's definitely I could see the AI being leaned upon for that right now. The actual data analysis side, like, do you think so? Would you have someone's like a human person still checking the AI data analysis, and then that's where I guess the incentives are to be participating and
Yeah, definitely. Like the human will double check things, and the human will get rewards. But basically, yeah, I think like I guess there's two questions. Like one is like uh what we're building is like a big data set to train this like AI thing on. And then like the next thing is like um creating the right incentives for people to do the right thing with it. So like someone who checks the work, someone who proposes the idea, someone who uh does the maybe it requires some amount of like doing the actual experiment. One thing about those is interesting is like I think there's gonna be these like cloud labs in the future. If they're like there's the one called Emerald Labs now, but basically like, you upload a Python script and then they do all your data collection sort of. So they'll mix things for a certain like 5 minutes and then transfer it to this and add this reagent and let it sit for 5 minutes. And so I think that'll be like a bigger part of it in the future as well. But yeah, so like having a human keep track of having a human double check things and then rewarding that human for it, will be very important.
yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, so will everyone have like a kind of like a profile for the Shipa Science? Like,
Oh, will a person?
Yeah, or
Yeah. If you were interested in learning more, we're also hiring. If anyone's interested in potentially, we got funding from some pretty big names also, which is cool. So if you're interested in working on it, just my email is here, and my Twitter is here, and here's the QR code for my Twitter. Um, so if you're interested, just send me a message there.
yeah, I love what you said about how like GitHub for coders, it's much easier to kind of like share and assess and
Yeah.
can kind of whereas in science it's less opaque to see like how much people have contributed, or it's just a longer process. Like you'll have to see people's journal publications, or they have like that the index was the H index.
The H index, yes, exactly. So like, yeah, so like in our platform, like you have your data set and you have the analysis that you run on it, and it's very easy for people to like look at it and fork it and like pay for a data set as well. So you could like say like, oh, I want to run something on it, or I want to like sample, I want to give me 500 rows. Boom, here's like a little bit of Bitcoin, right? And then you can like uh just like do that exchange. And that's for the data set. And then the idea is like as we're sort of building this data set out, then like that's gonna be really useful for like training this AI where people can just like, well then once you have the AI, once you have the science AI, then like who knows what's even possible then. But the idea is like it'll be able to do a PhD. Like, you just like say like, hey, generate some new IP and like make sure that it works. And then everyone who contributed to it will track it. And then like say 1,000 people submit sleep data on their Aura Ring, and then you say like, hey, invent some new medication or device. And then everyone who's contributed to the data set for that becomes part owner of the IP that was created from it.
And who gets the PhD then?
Well, it's more about like the IP.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
yeah. So like the PhD is kind of a weird thing, right? Like, it's another one of these titles that like doesn't mean too much. Like after you get it, like you realize that um it is very useful and it does signify that you did something, but like also like it's interesting to just like see more about like what actual work was done, right? So like you could track what types of data or what types of things were created.
Yeah, definitely. So do you see like the existing institutions working in collaboration with DSI, or do you see, like I guess,
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there is certainly some collaboration. So, for example, VitaDAO works together with existing um, like research professors to do research, and they use their kind of lab and everything, and then they get the funding. But I think there is another, but like that's like the thing that I mentioned earlier is VitaDAO is primarily like a funding source. And what I think is interesting is that uh, the types of research that are going to happen like in a more DeSci native way. And for those, I don't necessarily see a ton of overlap, but I could be wrong. I think it's more like Uber and a taxi system. Like Uber exists in one world, and then the taxi system sort of exists, and like Uber is like kind of better, but like now the prices are the same. So I don't know, but it's like more convenient to the Uber. I see them being a little bit distinct, and maybe specializing in different things. So maybe like DSci will be about like the more far flung things like longevity, and traditional research, like a university, will be more about like the more traditional things. Um, but I'm not 100% sure on how
yeah,
it's
no, it's interesting
on
to
how
hear
it's
your thoughts on
gonna
this because I know
fully
like,
shape out.
yeah. No, because it's like you have an institutional experience as well, and then and and the PhD. But a lot of DeSci, I feel like it's like democratizing the process, and like there is. I feel I do get a sense of like a counterculture vibe going on at the same time. So
Yes.
see how it's all gonna come together, or if it does. Um, the tokens at the lab, that's something I do think is for instance, like if I have like summer interns, uh,
Did
could I
they?
just build like throw out some tokens and mint some tokens and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the idea basically, is like everyone gets recognition. And then like the summer intern says like, okay, here are my tokens. I saw a cool like thumbs up bubble. How did you do that? Was that was that
this
was
or an
no, it was
actual.
like on the bubble on the screen. That was cool.
Oh, maybe Ray did that.
What? Oh
I
yeah,
have
like that. Oh wait, if I do this, does it do it?
is it? Huh.
Oh wow.
Just
I
him,
don't
huh?
have that turned on. Maybe it's
Yeah,
just raised.
is that a special like overlay? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Show us more.
how do you Ray, you're muted. How do you do that?
Yeah, is that a plugin
Oh
or?
no, I think it's like a iOS or like Apple thing. And
Oh.
there's an app called Line which I use to call my parents in Japan, and
Oh, yeah,
when I
yeah.
do this, it always shows up, and then I get interrupted all the time with this.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
It also becomes like,
Oh no.
yeah.
Huh. No, but I saw it on your guys' screen at the bottom. So you guys somehow have it activated. Yeah. I don't know, maybe it just like randomly did it.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh well. So yeah, I mean the idea is like, yeah, so your summer interns, they could like get the token for their work. And then like when they apply for college, then they have in their wallet all the NFTs, all the pieces of data, all the projects that they've contributed to as part of their wallet, and they can like verify like the time and the date of when it occurred, and then boom, like you have like a really easy verifiable thing that's trackable.
Yeah. So do you think like college admissions counselors will start looking at like wallets to verify?
I mean,
No, that makes
I
a lot
think
of sense. Yeah, because right now it's just paper and like people can write anything, and it's a lot of work for them to kind of suss through all the, like fake internships or like.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the future will have. Like, but it's probably better than LinkedIn, right? Like, it's probably better than just saying you did. I think you're gonna have to have like the problem is you're gonna need an AI to then process it, right? Because like I'm gonna have like 20 billion data points.
Yeah.
And like what does that even mean, right? No human's gonna want to look at that. And so the admission will be like an AI person who will just be like, "Doo-doo," and then like look to see what's in my wallet, and then like making a yes or no decision based on that. Is that what I imagine how it will look like?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Um, can I ask you like a non presentation related question just
of
about like
course.
your Chrome extensions? I see
Oh,
a
oh,
and then there's like a mushroom and a cookie. Is that
this one is the Pomodoro thing. So you like
Laura? Okay,
work
nice.
for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This one is MetaMask, obviously. This one is for like bugs.
Okay.
This one is something we need to clear cookies a lot for like when we're working on like login. So this will
Yeah.
clear the cookies, and this is just
And
the
then you have the rest of the extensions.
Chrome
Okay,
native one. Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
you get that Pomodoro one. Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of Pomodoro ones out there. You can like
You already
work for.
you already have it?
It's pretty good. It's pretty. It's just I think you have to agree to use it though. Like you have to opt into it, and then it'll help you keep track.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions? Or thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
I,
Yeah.
I noticed you have some D-side NYC swag. I was wondering if you'd be willing to trade one of these shirts for.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
All
I
right.
would love it. Maybe I'll give you my shipping address if that's okay. And I'd love to get one and I'll ship you something.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. We also have these cups that are very cool. We have these beaker cups. I'll show you. Give me a second.
Oh, nice. That is cool. That's so.
Yeah. So I'll get you one of those.
Yeah. It's like it's hot liquid safe as well, or like.
It's I don't know.
Is it
It's
autoclave? Can you throw it in an autoclave or not?
I think it is. I don't know exactly what it's made of. It might be Pyrex, but I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's very we had them custom printed in school.
Um,
Oh, there's the bubble again.
the what?
The bubble
Oh,
on your guys's, yeah.
on the main screen? I don't know.
On
How.
yours, yeah, exactly.
Weird.
Huh.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of bubble than Ray's.
Okay. Maybe.
Ray, you do it again?
Yeah, I don't. I can't.
Oh no, it's the same bubble. I take it back.
Does it? Oh, maybe Ray's bubble just shows up on everyone's screen, or
Or no, it was your guys's. It was your guys's. Yeah.
you see it now? Yeah. No, we don't see it on ours.
Oh, okay. It only works sometimes. It must be a bug or something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there any available data set that people can get access now
That people can what?
and get the access in for a visa to join a visa?
Yes. I mean, is there a data set already available? Is that your question?
Yes.
Not yet. I mean, that's what we're trying to make is we're trying to start with like Aura Ring data and like allowing people to contribute their Aura Ring data to it. Would you guys want your Aura Ring? Would you guys share your Aura Ring data to contribute to research and also get an incentive?
If I have one, I'm willing to contribute. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good use. That's useful feedback.
So would you be using would you have to pay Aura Ring to access their APIs in order to get
No, it's through the API. So they have an API, and the way we have it is like it's called an OAuth token. And so like you log in with your username and password to Aura Ring, and then they issue us a token. And then with that token, we can then get the data. And then based on how much data you have, we give you a certain number of tokens.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Do you get
And it's all anonymized. And so like it just has like when you're awake and when you're sleeping. And then yeah, so like and like your body temperature and stuff, but it's not something that's like too crazy, right? Like
yeah, so,
I'm pretty like I'm okay with that, right?
yeah. They don't so you don't get the raw data then. It's just or
We get whatever's on the Aura Ring. So I think it has like your HRV. I think it's processed on the ring first. Like I think it munges some stuff, but it's basically like a JSON file at the end of the day that has your HRV, your sleep time, your activities that you've done, your temperature, and there's like a couple other things that are like missing, but like that style of stuff. Other things are on your heart rate and O2 and stuff like that.
yeah. What I noticed about
And your
the
movement,
is,
your acceleration.
yeah, it's at least for if unless you pay, what I noticed is that you don't get the raw data. You get the data that they process on their servers.
Yeah.
because obviously if you get the raw data and then you get the process data, you could probably reverse engineer your own
They
algorithm.
don't want that to happen.
And they don't want that to
Yeah.
happen.
Oh,
But it's
really? Huh.
easy to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of noticed that you know, in a sense are double dipping because the people that are using Oura Ring are paying them also, and then the researchers who want
Yeah.
access to the raw data have to pay them. Which I mean, to be fair, like they created the system and everything, and they're running it. But I do feel like there is space for like a blockchain based wearable.
Yeah, like an open source
Yeah,
Aura Ring.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
yeah, one of my fears is like with like if you base it too much on their APIs, is that like Twitter did with the you know, the apps, they can close it at any time, and then you wouldn't have access to the data, and all the developers that built upon that are end up kind of just like left in the dark. So I'm a bit afraid of that, and I'm wondering like I guess if you're
Yeah.
based just on ordering, but you have like other wearables, and if there's a movement to create something like a bit more open that you know will stay open, at least that's my like idea.
Yeah, I think that that is important. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if there's like an open source. I just got a framework laptop. I don't know what
Oh,
that
nice.
is.
Yeah, that's nice.
And basically it's like all plug and play and replaceable, which is kind of cool. And I actually really liked it. I think it does like a very good
Uh,
job of
Linux
like
or Ubuntu
what was
or
it?
what OS are you
Oh,
running on?
it's Ubuntu, yeah.
Okay.
And it does a very good job of like being open source but also usable. Maybe there's like an open source Aura Ring. I think that would be cool. Maybe we should look into that. That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I just wonder like how hard is it to build this? Like because it's so compact, right? Like it's a lot to push into that like little space. So maybe it does require like some sort of like very specialized manufacturing. Maybe an easier thing would be like a wristband or something, like
Yeah.
a Whoop. I'm sure like that's relatively easy to do. But yeah.
I'm kind of friends with the business director at Ordering out here. Um, and I can connect you with him if you're interested.
Yeah.
But he was actually telling me that, you know, I don't know if I'm like, I'm not gonna give his name out, so that it's okay. But it's like these devices are really easy to make actually right now.
Yeah. It's
Most
just a
of it,
battery with an accelerometer and a Bluetooth.
yeah. There's a lot
Yeah.
of OEMs in like
Bluetooth.
Shenzhen. If you go to Shenzhen,
Yeah.
but I think integrating it into the software and then building up the platform is apparently the hard part. But and also quality control. Yeah, quality control is the hard part. But the devices themselves, right now, it's I guess for the, at least for the ordering, the technology is yeah pretty it's pretty easy to access.
Yeah.
Through OEMs. Yeah, I think that's why like Samsung's moving in. They're saying that Apple is gonna do a ring too at some point. Everyone's getting in on the ring party. I just need one that I can find if I lose, and maybe like a silicone one, so that like
Interesting.
it doesn't, you know, it's like very bother me. Yeah.
I've noticed when I'm running with the Aura Ring, it restricts. I mean, this isn't tight at all, right? Like you can move it in and out, but even just with the Aura Ring there, it restricts my finger gets cold. Like whichever finger it's on, it restricts the blood enough so
That,
that the ringed finger gets slightly colder, which is kind of interesting.
oh yeah, and you don't have any like circulation problems,
No,
so
no, no Reynolds or anything. I mean, it's in New York. It gets cold out at night, like so you do get kind of cold. But all the other fingers are fine. But just with this, it's enough to to restrict it. Because also, I think also when you run, you probably dilate a little bit, and so your fingers change in size quite a bit actually. So like you might go from a size 9 to a 10, but if this is a 9, your finger is like a little expanded, then it's yeah.
yeah. If you have like Raynaud's or some like circulation problem, that's probably even more discomfort, like uncomfortable.
So
Yeah.
You know, have some flexibility.
I think so, yeah. As long as it's not too tight, it should be a little bit, yeah. Definitely more stretch is better than metal. Were you at East Denver this year or?
I was not. I skipped it. Were you?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Stanford they had an event there for one day. And then,
Yeah, I was gonna go and then I just decided to work. I went last year. It was good, but also
yeah, I feel like it's like one of those things where it's cool to go like at least once. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I mean conferences are fun, but at some point, like I was conferenced out.
Yeah. It's like going to like EDC too many times.
Yeah. I was just like the same things and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I was gonna do like a quick slideshow after this about the East Denver, and then
Oh, cool.
yeah, funding. Maybe I can bring the class next year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's it's a nice there. You'll like it.
Yeah.
You go.
Well, do you have any more questions or?
Well, I just want to say thanks for the presentation. I hope you all luck in your company too. That's really great to really kind of unlock.
Yeah, like the oral link like data, I would like to get access once it's like complete. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I would love to work together with you on once we get some good sleep data, like if you were interested in send me a message here for sure on Twitter or something just so we can stay in touch and like once we get the sleep data love to give it to you, see if it's interesting or see if it like what you think of it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's their next T-side conference is during my spring break, so maybe we
Oh,
can
yeah.
personally bring you a t-shirt.
Oh yes, that would be great. I do like that t-shirt. That is a great t-shirt.
Cool.
It
Thank
has
you.
the red.
It has the red, the cardinal red. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Cool. Well, thank you.
thanks for your time. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, if it's recorded, could you send me the link once it's
Yeah.
done?
Yes. I will definitely send you a link.
Thank you. Perfect. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, are you giving the presentation on East Denver? Can I listen?
I mean it's kind of like just a slideshow if you wanna watch. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. It's either way.
Yeah. If,
Sure, I'll watch. I'll watch. Yeah.
um, I would say it's more of like a travel log than an actual. But you can help me comment on things like
Sure.
as we go along. Let's see.
Oh, I missed it, so I'm kind of curious what you saw there.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually left my laptop at home today. Uh, and so I'm gonna do a Google Photos.
I will stop sharing. Did I stop sharing?
Yeah, I think I automatically
Okay.
did that. Um, is this showing right now on for you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So does this look familiar or
No.
this is just like right where
Oh,
the
that's getting into it. Yeah.
yeah, this is where the Uber drops you off. I just thought this building was super interesting. I think it's like a marine resolutions two. Anyway, okay, so we go. Cardano. Are you familiar with Cardano? Or it's like another blockchain. It's like Ethereum. There's Cardano. So they didn't have a booth at East Denver, but it was interesting because they had someone right outside passing out these cards. And you could get like $10 worth of tokens if you scan the QR code in the back. But there's a lot of guerrilla marketing. So this is like what it looks like. Yeah. This is where like the hackathon is going on. But it's very cute. I do love the artwork that they do. So they have a separate building just for the build-a-thon. I think like if you're into building, this is great. They had these NFT uh, like little booths or like a little treasure hunt where you would bring your phone and then you could like scan and get tokens connected to your wallet, and then one of like if you got 10 coins, you could get this book by Chris Dixon for free. Let's see. They had so this year, I don't know, they have a blockchain powered vending machine last time you were there, or
I didn't see it.
yeah, so I feel like every year there's something new. They're just trying to do things with like what like connected to the blockchain. To be honest, this vending machine didn't work out well, but I can see them doing better iterations of it. And like in Japan, they have vending machines everywhere, but you still have to use like coins in a lot of them. And so if they're able to get this, like the Japanese vending machines are so good because they have the hot and cold.
Yeah.
And Web3 where you're just able to pay for it with your phone. I mean the technology is there. So this is interesting. This is like there's so many like people passing things around. Like this is like full free development courses, I guess, but based on a certain blockchain, the near chain. So I think they got funding from them to do these courses to have people build on their chains. This is just like an example of a booth. Did you see this one, the Palau?
No. Oh yeah, Palau. I'm very familiar.
Palau.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So they're selling digital residency. So you can become a digital resident of Palau, so that you can for like Binance, like the exchanges, KYC, you can do their KYC through Palau, and then you're subject to the laws there instead of the US, so you can trade the coins that aren't allowed out here.
Oh, wow. That adds a whole other layer of.
Yeah, it's like $250 a year to become a digital resident of Palau. Apparently, if you actually go to Palau with this digital residency, you get some perks. I don't know how many people are actually fly out there, but it's an interesting collaboration that they have, yeah, with the government.
So if their country doesn't become submerged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it'll only exist on the blockchain. Like, I don't know, yeah. You'll just have Palau residents, like a digital Palau. But yeah, I love what they're doing with that. It's very bold, yeah. I think it's not actually the country has an agreement with the company and the company is building all this out. A separate private company, but it's an official, digital residency.
Huh.
This is like a hardware wallet company. What else? Oh, so Kennedy had a booth there. RFK. I think he was like the keynote speaker or something, which was interesting. And then we were talking about the other day. We were talking about how cars are like take a lot of our data, and this is blockchain based. It says for all moving objects, but I think they're trying to incorporate it into like Waymo and stuff like that. To see or something similar.
So then for you to be able to control your data or get access to what they're.
Let's say this one.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Okay.
So I think.
Yes, I think maybe I know they're gathering the data right now. I'm not sure how like what the process is. A lot of these places are like token based, so you must get some tokens back in exchange for your giving your data.
So you might sell it to others, like so say you're not coming off your Tesla, you might sell it to Ford or GM.
Ford or GM, yeah, maybe even like the insurance companies for them to gather data. I mean, I should just look this up instead.
No, that's fine.
Here we go. Building on Polygon. So vehicle NFTs. Here we go. What I noticed this time, which was interesting, was even though it's December, they had a lot of other companies, like other chains, so other than Ethereum, with booths. So Polygon Solana was big. And then there's just random merch. Oh yeah, and then I also went to a DeSci summit at December. So it was hosted at like Colorado, University of Colorado, and they're talking about nano publications, which Michael I think briefly mentioned earlier about how like if you do nano publications, you know, you can kind of advance science without going through if you can review those smaller advances quicker and have those peer reviewed and submitted, then people can build upon that, and it could speed up the process and democratize things. Let's see. So yeah, this is at University of Colorado. There's also someone that was trying to work on like the peer reviewing of articles, and then you get incentivizing it by getting tokens for being a reviewer, because one of the problems with reviewing papers right now, or publishing papers, is there aren't enough reviewers. Like no one wants to really do it anymore because it takes a lot of time, and you don't. There's not much incentive unless I guess you want to like you're going deep into academia, but there's it's a long process that I don't think people enjoy as much, especially with like AI now. That like so that was the DeSci Summit, and then this is the Stanford event. So this is one of my I guess one of my friends. He's working on key management with like breaking up the you know how you had the passphrase, and so I don't know. Have you met or talked to Krish?
No.
Okay. So yeah, he's working on like I think there are a couple people working on like the private key custody, safe custody of your private key. And so he's building out a platform to do that. And then this is Heather. Yeah, and then this is Sota Watanabe from like Astar Labs. He's working on a project in Japan. I don't know. Startville. I don't. Have you followed the Astar networks or?
No. I'm gonna Google it.
So he currently lives in Singapore, but he's moving out to New York actually, I think this month. Because said the crypto scene in New York is where I guess what the funding is at these days.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, here's a noun style vending machine. I met the guy who actually is building these vending machines. This one was pretty good. And he lives in like out here. I think the office is in Milpitas. And it was interesting because he not only had the Web3 vending machines, but he builds and sells these Web3 frames too, or like picture frames that can display NFTs and they can be managed from afar. So I guess
that's like an electronic smart board then?
Yes, yeah, an electronic smart board connected into the blockchain. Wow. So I guess if you're doing like an NFT gallery or something, I don't think it would be too hard to build your own, but it would still take time, and they've kind of got the process down.
Pretty thin too, like hardware.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's like it's just basically an LCD panel, but this panel, I guess they found a good source. So the viewing angles are really good rather than just buying something. Yeah. And then I think there might be like a Raspberry Pi behind it, or Yeah, I try to ask more about how it works, and it's a little like,
Yeah.
yeah, don't want to tell secrets, yeah. So let's see. Oh, this is me and Ray catching up at the event. This is interesting. This is like a Solana. There's a lot of community stuff going on in Solana. And they have meme coins and all this fun. And people are just pouring money into like brought this today. I don't know if anyone apparently this is a big coin on Solana right now. It's called, have you heard of this doo-doo coin?
No.
Yeah. So doo-doo coin, like it is creative. Feel free to. I have way too much like merch. Apparently, doo-doo coin is due for a pop. Like, yeah, I don't know. Please don't. This is not actual advice. Like,
This is financial advice.
Yeah. This is another one. Tonki. This guy. He built out. He created a meme and then it blew up, and now he's running a business off of the meme that he created. So he contracted a guy, I think, and someone joined his group, and then they made plush animals. Now I don't know. It was
Wow.
yeah. But yeah. So this is the back of the Cardano wallet, and I guess the QR codes are unique because it looked like a sticker. So you can only scan it once. But I don't know, someone had to do that. Yeah, that was the Eat Denver stuff. Do you have any comments on it or?
Looks cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, all this stuff that's happening there, it's like it's still going. Yeah, Solana's becoming a bigger thing too.
Yeah. Solana is they had a lot of developer enthusiasm and support. So I'm curious to see how that plays out in the next couple of years. The fact that other chains were paying money to have booths at East Denver, and East Denver was like full of it was exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of cross-chain activity going on right now.
Yeah. Also, you can build stuff on Solana. It seems doable. Like the other stuff is too expensive.
Yeah. So I mean, Solana had because things are cheaper. I guess people are moving there. It'll be interesting to see now that the gas prices on Ethereum are supposedly lower.
Yeah.
That plays out too. People will be coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Excellent. Well, thank you guys. I will head on off, but it was great to meet you all.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Yeah. Until next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.